Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Have you ever had a night where your heart felt too heavy to sleep? Where your thoughts wouldn't settle and every breath felt like it carried a burden you couldn't put down? Have you ever wondered why Allah allows nights like that? Sometimes He keeps you awake not to exhaust you, but to invite you. There's a moment, quiet, unseen, unnoticed by the world, where the entire universe seems asleep except you and the one who created the night itself. In that stillness, Allah is calling you to a conversation that daylight often steals away. Allah says, "Call upon me, I will respond to you." And maybe, just maybe, your restlessness is the response to that call. He is pulling you toward Him because He wants to heal what you've been hiding. You see, the power of Tahajjud is not in the length of the prayer or the eloquence of the dua. It's in the vulnerability of standing before your Lord when no one is watching. It's in the whisper of a broken soul saying, "Ya Allah, I have nowhere else to go." And Allah loves that whisper more than you will ever understand. This is the place where faith deepens, where sabr becomes real, where the heart finally learns the meaning of tawakkul. Trust so complete that the future doesn't scare you anymore. Remember, the Prophet taught us that our Lord descends to the lowest heaven in the last third of the night and asks, "Who is calling upon me so I may answer him?" How can a heart remain the same after hearing this invitation? Maybe the things you've been praying for haven't arrived. Not because Allah denied you, but because He wanted you to meet Him in the night before He gave them to you. Maybe your delay is the bridge that leads you to Tahajjud, and Tahajjud is the path that leads you back to Him. And yes, there is pain. There are nights when tears fall faster than words. There are moments of heartbreak where you're afraid your voice will break if you speak. But every tear in Tahajjud is recorded. Every cry is heard. Every moment of weakness becomes a reason for Allah to strengthen you. This is not just prayer, this is healing. And the incredible thing is, when you rise from that prayer, when you step into your day after pouring your heart out to Allah in the night, you will not walk the same. Your problems may still exist, but they will not own you. Your struggles may remain, but they will not shake you. Because the one who kneels before Allah at night stands with strength during the day. So if your heart is restless, answer the call. If your worries are loud, take them to the quiet of the night. If you are waiting for a door to open, knock when the world is asleep. Tahajjud is not a burden, it is a gift, a divine meeting reserved for the ones Allah wants close. And if He woke you up, it means He chose you. Return to Him, whisper to Him, cry to Him. Let the night carry your pain to the one who writes your destiny. And watch how the day begins to bow in your favor. Awake at night, and you will walk strong by day. Tahajjud is not just a prayer, it is the intimate, sacred conversation between a heart that has been wounded by life and the one who has the power to mend every wound. When a person rises in the quiet darkness, long after the world has fallen asleep, they bring with them all the emotions they hide during the day, the fears they don't admit, the disappointments they bury, the loneliness they pretend not to feel. In the silence of the night, when distractions disappear and the noise of dunya fades, the heart finally speaks honestly. And the incredible mercy of Allah is that He listens to every unspoken word. There is a healing that happens in Tahajjud that no amount of comfort from the world can provide. It is the moment when a believer stands with trembling hands, whispering their pain into the darkness, knowing that the one who hears them is closer than their own breath. The tears that fall are not signs of weakness, they are signs that the soul is returning to its true home. Every drop is witnessed. Every sigh is counted. Every plea is recorded with tenderness by the one who never grows tired of listening. At times, the heart feels too broken to speak. But even that silence is a dua. Even that heaviness is a message. And Allah understands every language of the heart. Tahajjud becomes a sanctuary, a place where the believer can collapse without fear, where the soul can finally breathe after suffocating under the weight of its worries. What makes these moments so powerful is the sincerity they carry. No audience, no expectations, no performance, only you and Allah. In that sacred solitude, healing begins, strength returns, hope awakens, and the heart discovers that the one it turned to in the darkness was the one who was protecting it all along. Night prayer strengthens the soul in ways that no one else can see. During the day, people often judge strength by what is visible: confidence, productivity, achievements, or the ability to look composed despite inner chaos. But the real strength of a believer is not built in public, it is cultivated silently in the hidden hours of the night. Tahajjud is where the soul gathers the energy, clarity, and resilience that shape the way a person moves through this world. When someone wakes up from sleep solely to remember their Creator, something profound happens inside them. They step away from comfort. They resist their own desires and they choose Allah over sleep. That choice alone reshapes the heart. It softens the ego, strengthens sincerity, and reminds the soul of its true purpose. In those quiet moments when the world is wrapped in darkness, the believer feels a unique nearness to Allah, a closeness that daylight distractions rarely allow. This closeness creates a different kind of strength. It is not loud or noticeable. It doesn't flash or demand attention. Instead, it settles quietly into the heart, like light filling an empty room. The believer begins to walk through the day with a calmness that others cannot explain. They handle challenges with patience because their soul already tasted tranquility before sunrise. They respond to hardship with trust because they already placed their worries in the hands of the most merciful during the night. This hidden strength cannot be earned through effort alone. It is a gift from Allah to the one who seeks Him when no one else is watching. The world may never understand where this peace comes from, but the believer knows every moment spent before Allah in the stillness of the night becomes a shield, a light, and a source of inner power that carries them through the day. The quiet hours before Fajr carry a closeness to Allah that can transform an entire day. There is something different about this time. Something that cannot be captured during the rush of daylight or the noise of daily responsibilities. It is a moment when the world is still, when the distractions of life are muted, when the heart is finally free to feel what it often ignores. In this silence, a believer steps into a space where the mercy of Allah is wide open, where the gates of acceptance feel nearer, and where the soul can reconnect with the one who created it. These hours are not ordinary. Allah chose them, honored them, and placed within them a unique spiritual sweetness that cannot be found elsewhere. When a believer stands in these moments, their dua is different, their sincerity is sharper, their tears fall more easily, and their heart softens more quickly. This softness becomes the foundation for everything that follows in the day. It becomes the lens through which they see the world. A person who begins their day with tahajjud does not simply wake up, they awaken their soul. They carry into the daylight a tranquility that others cannot explain. They respond to difficulties with a patience that surprises even themselves. They walk with a quiet confidence, not because life is easy, but because their heart already tasted closeness to Allah when the sky was still dark. The quiet before Fajr is like a spiritual reset. It washes away the heaviness of yesterday, it purifies the intention for today, and it fills the believer with a light that guides them through whatever challenges await. This closeness is not something that can be defined, it must be experienced. And once tasted, it leaves a mark on the heart, a longing to return again to that sacred, peaceful conversation with Allah before the world wakes up. When a believer rises for tahajjud, something extraordinary happens inside the heart. The worries that felt heavy during the day begin to soften, and the anxieties that chase the mind finally slow down. In the stillness of the night, when the world is asleep and every distraction is faded, the believer steps into a sacred moment where worries melt and faith rises. It is not that problems vanish, rather, the heart learns to see them through a different lens. A lens shaped by trust, humility, and closeness to Allah. During the day, fear and stress often grow louder because the heart is surrounded by responsibilities, expectations, and noise. But at night, when only you and your Creator remain, those same fears feel smaller. You begin to realize that the one you are standing before has complete power over every difficulty you face. Your voice trembles not from fear, but from knowing that you are speaking to the most merciful, the one who understands your pain better than you do. This understanding gives birth to a kind of faith that cannot be built through comfort. It is born through surrender. Tahajjud becomes a place where the heart learns emotional release. Every tear becomes a silent confession. Every whispered dua becomes a declaration of trust. And every moment of silence becomes a reminder that Allah is listening, even when you cannot form the words. Slowly, the heart finds relief. Worries turn into whispers of hope, and pain becomes a reason to lean closer to Allah rather than further from Him. When faith rises in these moments, it does not rise loudly. It rises quietly but powerfully, settling into the soul like light filling a dark room. The believer leaves Tahajjud lighter, calmer, and spiritually renewed. They step into the day carrying a strength that comes not from themselves but from the one who heard them in the night. Every tear that falls into Tahajjud carries a meaning far deeper than the person shedding it often realizes. These tears are not merely signs of sadness, they are signs of a heart turning back to the one who created it. In the quiet darkness, when a believer cries before Allah, those tears become a source of light in ways that the world cannot see. What is shed in the night becomes the strength that guides them through the day. During daylight, people often feel pressure to appear strong, composed, and unaffected. They hide their pain behind smiles and silence. But at night, when no one is watching, the heart finally allows itself to break open. And in front of Allah, breaking is not a failure. It is a form of worship. Each tear is witnessed, valued, and honored by the one who knows exactly why it fell. Not a single drop is wasted. These tears wash away burdens the heart didn't know how to carry. In Tahajjud, tears speak a language the tongue cannot express. They say, Ya Allah, I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed, I need you. And Allah in His mercy answers these unspoken prayers by strengthening the believer in ways they may not understand immediately. The same person who cried in the silence of the night walks into the day with a calmness that others cannot explain. It is not because their problems disappeared, but because their heart tasted the sweetness of being heard by its Creator. These tears shine as light in the believer's life. They soften the heart, purify the soul, and bring a peace that settles deep within. The day becomes easier because the night was spent in sincere surrender. The believer stands strong, not because they are fearless, but because they release their fears in front of the one who can replace them with tranquility. In this way, every tear shed in Tahajjud becomes a quiet miracle, a hidden light that brightens the believer's path long after the night has passed. Sincerity is one of the most precious qualities a believer can possess, and Tahajjud is the place where that sincerity is born, tested, and strengthened. During the day, a person may perform good deeds while being surrounded by people. They may speak kindly, give charity, attend gatherings, or recite Qur'an. But even the purest actions can sometimes be touched by subtle expectations, the desire to be appreciated, acknowledged, or noticed. The night, however, strips all of that away. No one sees you, no one praises you, no one even knows you are awake. In those hidden hours, every act of worship becomes purely for Allah. When a believer rises for Tahajjud, they make a choice guided by sincerity. They leave the comfort of their bed, they push through sleep, and they stand before their Lord for no other reason than love, need, and longing. There is no audience to impress, no eyes to witness, no hearts to please, only the gaze of the one who sees everything. This pure intention transforms the heart. It cleanses it from the subtle pride that can sneak into daytime worship. It reminds the soul that the purpose of its existence is not to be admired by people, but to be accepted by Allah. In the darkness, sincerity becomes easier because the heart is honest. There is no reason to pretend. You can cry freely, speak openly, and admit your flaws without fear of judgment. The ego softens, the heart humbles itself, and worship becomes a private conversation that belongs solely to you and your Creator. This purity strengthens the soul in a way nothing else can. Tahajjud teaches you to worship for Allah's sake alone. It trains the believer to value his approval over the approval of the world. And when sincerity grows in the night, it begins to influence every part of the day. Your actions become more genuine, your intentions become clearer, and your faith becomes deeper. What you learn in the unseen moments of the night becomes the foundation of who you are when the world is watching. When a believer wakes up for Tahajjud, it is not just an act of worship, it is a gesture of longing, a step taken toward the one who never turns anyone away. In those quiet hours when the world is wrapped in sleep, a person stands before Allah with sincerity that is rarely found in the busyness of daylight. And Allah, in His infinite generosity, responds to this effort in ways that unfold beautifully throughout the believer's life. Doors begin to open, not because the believer knocked on them, but because Allah honors the one who came to him when it was hardest. Tahajjud is a sign that the heart is hungry for something the world cannot give. The person wakes up, not because they are strong, but because they are chosen. They rise, not because they have perfect discipline, but because Allah wants to bring them closer. This closeness creates a spiritual impact that follows them long after the prayer ends. It is as if every step taken in the night leads to unexpected blessings during the day. Solutions appear, Ease arrives and paths unfold effortlessly. Sometimes the believer doesn't even know which door to knock on. They may feel lost, unsure, confused about what they truly want or need, yet Allah, who knows what lies ahead and what lies within, opens the doors that are best for them. The dua whispered in exhaustion becomes the reason Allah clears a path they didn't even think to ask for. The fears they cried about become replaced with calm. The burdens they placed at His feet become lighter, not because the situation changed instantly, but because Allah strengthened their heart. This is the unseen reward of Tahajjud. The believer finds their life being guided gently toward goodness, opportunity, and protection. They discover that the doors they couldn't open with effort swing open with ease when they turn to Allah sincerely in the night. And in that realization, they learn a timeless truth. The one who wakes up for Allah never walks through life alone. Patience becomes a different experience for the believer who tastes the sweetness of Tahajjud. During the day, patience can feel heavy. It can feel like waiting endlessly, carrying burdens silently, or enduring situations that seem unfair or overwhelming. But when a person stands before Allah in the stillness of the night, that same patience transforms from a struggle into a source of strength. The darkness of Tahajjud softens the hardship of waiting because the believer is no longer waiting alone. In the quiet hours, the heart speaks honestly. It confesses its exhaustion, its hopes, its fears, and its confusion. And in return, Allah places a calmness inside that cannot be explained to anyone else. Problems may remain, but they lose their power to break the believer. Pain may still exist, but it becomes something the heart can carry with dignity. This is the secret. The patience of someone who prays at night is not the same as the patience of someone who relies only on themselves. In Tahajjud, a person learns that patience is not just holding on, it is trusting that Allah sees, knows, hears, and will respond, even when everything appears still. This trust creates a quiet resilience. The believer who cries in the night finds themselves walking through the day with an unexpected steadiness. They do not crumble at small difficulties. They do not lose hope when delays stretch longer. They become anchored because their heart has tasted the comfort of speaking to the one who controls time, destiny, and healing. This kind of patience has sweetness in it, not because the situation becomes easy, but because the believer feels supported by Allah. And once the soul experiences this support, patience stops feeling like endurance and starts feeling like companionship. A journey walked with the one who never leaves the side of those who wake for him in the night. There is a unique clarity that begins to unfold in the heart of a believer who consistently stands in prayer during the last part of the night. When a person rises for Tahajjud, they step into a space where the noise of the world is silent, and only the truth of their relationship with Allah remains. In that quiet, something remarkable happens. The believer begins to see life differently. The delays that once frustrated them, the unanswered prayers that once confused them, and the unexpected events that once felt unfair begin to make sense in a new light. Divine timing becomes clearer, not because the believer understands every detail, but because their heart learns to trust the one who arranges every detail. During the day, life feels rushed. Our minds are full, our emotions are scattered, and it becomes easy to misread situations or feel overwhelmed by what we cannot control. But in the stillness before Fajr, the believer finds space to breathe spiritually. As they cry, reflect, and speak to Allah, their heart slowly aligns with the reality that Allah's plan is never random and never late. What seemed like a setback begins to feel like a protection. What felt like a delay starts to resemble preparation. The believer realizes that Allah is not only writing their story, He is guiding them lovingly through every chapter. In these sacred moments, the heart becomes more willing to surrender. The believer no longer demands immediate answers. Instead, they ask for strength, clarity, and trust. They start to recognize that whatever Allah holds back is for good, and whatever He gives is at the perfect moment. This transformation is subtle yet powerful. It does not remove challenges, but it changes how the believer faces them. When the morning comes, they step into the day with a calmer heart. They stop chasing outcomes and begin walking with confidence, knowing that whatever unfolds has been designed by the one who heard their whispers in the night. In this way, Tahajjud becomes the source of a deeper understanding, a heart-level certainty that Allah's timing is always right, even when life feels uncertain. Tahajjud is one of the most powerful teachers of surrender. In the darkness of the night, when a believer rises with tired eyes and a heavy heart, they are quietly declaring something profound, that every fear, every hope, every longing, every hidden worry is being placed into the hands of Allah. This act alone transforms the soul. It reminds the believer that no matter how complicated life becomes, the one they are turning to can't tangle any knot and ease any burden. Tahajjud trains the heart to let go of the illusion of control and embrace the comfort of divine reliance. During the day, the mind races. People try to plan, fix, solve, and understand everything happening around them. They hold their fears tightly, thinking that worrying will somehow protect them from hardship. But in the night, when the world sleeps and the heart finally speaks truthfully, a believer realizes that real safety comes from letting Allah take over. In Tahajjud, they confess their limitations, admit their weakness, and acknowledge that they cannot carry their life on their own. And the beauty of this moment is that Allah responds by filling the heart with a peace that cannot be found anywhere else. The more a believer practices this surrender, the more natural it becomes. They stop panicking over closed doors because they trust that Allah's wisdom is behind every delay. They stop fearing the future because they know the one who controls it. Their worries become smaller, not because life becomes easier, but because the heart becomes trained to see every situation through the lens of tawakkul. Tahajjud is where this trust grows strongest. In the quiet hours before dawn, the believer hands their struggles to Allah, and in return, Allah grants them a calmness that carries them through the day. They walk with steadiness, speak with clarity, and face challenges without breaking. This is the power of surrender learned at night. It turns fear into faith, uncertainty into contentment, and hardship into a deeper closeness with the one who never lets a sincere heart go unanswered. Inner peace is one of the greatest treasures a human soul can experience, yet it is also one of the rarest in the noise and chaos of daily life. Our hearts are constantly pulled in every direction. Responsibilities, worries, expectations, heartbreaks, disappointments, and ambitions. All of this creates a weight that quietly presses on the soul, making it restless even when everything on the outside appears calm. But there is a sacred moment in the deep silence of the night when this restlessness begins to fade. When a believer rises for Tahajjud, disconnecting from the world and reconnecting with their Creator, inner peace begins to settle like a gentle light entering a dark room. In Tahajjud, the soul returns to the one it was created for. There are no distractions, no pressure to perform, no need to pretend. It is just the believer in Allah, a private meeting that cleanses the heart from the noise of dunya. The Qur'an is recited softly, tears may fall, and the heart finally breathes after holding its pain inside all day. This connection brings a tranquility that the world can never offer. The heart becomes lighter because it finally feels understood, heard, and embraced by the one who knows every silent worry. As the believer stands, bows, and prostrates in the darkness, their soul begins to feel anchored again. The thoughts that once raced uncontrollably slow down. The fears that felt overwhelming shrink in comparison to Allah's mercy. The sadness that felt unbearable becomes softer. This is the hidden gift of Tahajjud. It restores the heart's balance. When morning comes, the believer carries this inner peace into their day. They face challenges with clarity and respond to difficulties with calmness. They walk through life remembering that peace is not found in people, achievements, or circumstances. It is found in the quiet moments spent with Allah when no one else is watching. Tahajjud becomes the soul's refuge, the place where it heals, resets, and returns to its Creator with a peace that stays long after the night ends. The hardest days feel different for the one who begins them with Tahajjud. Life will always bring challenges, moments that overwhelm the mind, break the heart, and test the limits of a person's strength. Some days feel so heavy that even getting out of bed feels like a burden. But when a believer starts their morning after standing before Allah in the deep silence of the night, those same difficulties take on a new meaning. The struggle is still there, but it no longer feels impossible. The heart becomes gentler, the mind becomes clearer, and the soul becomes stronger. Tahajjud softens the weight of hardship because it reconnects the believer with the one who manages every matter of their life. In that quiet conversation with Allah, the believer pours out fears, complaints, and confusion. They admit their helplessness, and at the same time discover a strength they didn't know they had. This strength isn't loud. It doesn't show itself in bold actions or dramatic moments. It settles quietly into the heart. giving the believer the ability to face whatever the day brings with calmness instead of panic. When a person has cried to Allah in the night, they wake up lighter. The burdens they carried yesterday don't feel as sharp. The responsibilities that once overwhelmed them seem manageable. The problems that haunted their thoughts no longer have the same power, not because they magically disappeared, but because the believer has already handed them to Allah. They have already found comfort, clarity, and hope in conversation with the one who can change any situation. The day becomes easier because the soul has already been nourished. Challenges become tests rather than punishments. Delays feel like wisdom rather than rejection. Even sadness becomes a reminder of Allah's closeness. The believer walks through the day remembering the serenity they felt at night, and that memory becomes a shield against emotional storms. This is the gift of Tahajjud. The night heals you so the day cannot break you. It transforms hardship into something you can carry, and it turns the heaviest days into days filled with quiet strength and unshakable faith. Belief in Qadr often becomes challenging when life unfolds in ways we did not expect. We face situations that confuse us, delays that frustrate us, and losses that leave our hearts shaken. Human beings naturally want clarity, control, and certainty. But Qadr reminds us that the one who writes our destiny sees what we cannot, knows what we do not, and protects us in ways we may never realize. For many, this truth stays theoretical until they begin to pray Tahajjud. In the quiet hours of the night, Qadr stops feeling like a mystery and starts feeling like mercy. When a believer rises in the darkness, exhausted yet sincere, something changes within them. They speak to Allah with raw honesty, confessing their fears, questioning their path, and pouring out their confusion. And as they do this, Allah places a calm in their heart that transforms the way they see destiny. The believer begins to understand, not through intellect but through experience, that every delay, every heartbreak, every unexpected turn carries a wisdom deeper than what their eyes can see. In Tahajjud, the soul feels the closeness of Allah. And when Allah feels close, Qadr feels less frightening. It becomes easier to let go of the urge to control everything. It becomes easier to trust the unseen. The believer starts to recognize that what doesn't happen is as important as what does. Protection hides in closed doors. Mercy hides in unanswered prayers. Growth hides in painful moments. Through these nightly moments of surrender, the believer develops a quiet confidence in Allah's decree. They stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start saying, "If Allah allowed this, there is something here for my heart." This shift is profound. Qadr becomes a source of strength rather than fear, a reminder of Allah's care rather than His distance. Tahajjud becomes the bridge between confusion and trust. It teaches the heart to rest in the knowledge that Allah's plan is not just right, it is perfectly tailored, perfectly timed, and perfectly merciful. And when the heart accepts this, it becomes unshakable, emphasizes the importance of understanding that every challenge, test, and blessing in life follows a divine plan rooted in wisdom. Nothing happens randomly or without purpose, even when circumstances feel overwhelming or confusing. When a person recognizes that Allah's plan is always greater than their limited understanding, it becomes easier to navigate difficulties with patience and trust. This mindset does not eliminate hardships, but it reshapes how one responds to them. Instead of reacting with frustration or hopelessness, a believer learns to pause, reflect, and seek meaning in every experience, knowing that Allah never burdens a soul beyond its capacity. This key point also highlights that the Qur'an provides guidance not only for major life decisions, but also for daily struggles, emotional challenges, and moments of uncertainty. When a person consciously reminds themselves that Allah's plan encompasses both the visible and the unseen aspects of life, they develop a heart that is calm, content, and free from unnecessary panic. This trust is not blind, it is grounded in the repeated Qur'anic assurances that Allah is ever aware, ever merciful, and ever planning for the benefit of His servants. Even when something feels delayed or denied, a believer understands that it may be a hidden form of protection or preparation for something better. Recognizing this divine planning encourages a person to adopt a more positive and resilient lifestyle. They become more grateful for what they have, more patient with what they lack, and more hopeful about what is yet to come. This shift in mindset strengthens faith, deepens emotional maturity, and brings a sense of inner peace that is not easily shaken by worldly challenges. Ultimately, the key point teaches that when you align your expectations with Allah's wisdom, You begin to experience life with greater clarity, balance, and spiritual fulfillment.